Hello, finance students. We are looking at financial ratios, which are meant to understand the financial health of an organization that we see. So we're going to start out here in ICA 401 with liquidity ratios. And liquidity ratios are simply used to look at if a company can meet its short-term obligations using the resources it currently has on hand. Can it cover its short-term debt? So we're going to look at five generally accepted liquidity ratios, including current ratio, quick ratio, average collection period, accounts receivable turnover, and inventory turnover, and how to calculate those. So go ahead and download your ICA spreadsheet, and let's take a look at the first one here, current ratio. And current ratio is basically how well can the company pay its bills. Now, with most ratios, we want a higher number. We see that a higher number is typically better. But we have to be careful because if it's too high, it may represent an accumulation of unsellable inventory, uncollectible accounts receivable, or even excess cash that they can't seem to get rid of. So in general, we want to see higher is better. So we're going to look at some ratios for Apple Inc. as of fiscal year 2013. So we'll take a look at that here. All right. So let's take a look at ratio. So current ratio, to find a current ratio, we have to find our current assets and divide it by our current liabilities. So to do this, we are going to type in equals. We find our current assets and current liabilities both under the balance sheet. Current assets, we see right here in cell C12, so we can click on C12. We can hit divided by, so we just do our little /, and we want our current liabilities, which is over here. Our total current liabilities are found in G11. And we see that's in our formula up here. Once we have clicked on G11, we can just simply hit the enter key. And notice our current ratio pops in right here where it's supposed to of 1.35. So in essence, what we see, they can cover their short-term debt obligations 1.35 times. And what we have seen is ratios are meant to be compared. And we compare them to historical trends, and we compare them to industry trends. We see right here the industry for Apple. Currently, the current ratio is about 0.68, or I'm sorry, back in 2013, it would have been 0.68. So we see that Apple is about twice as strong as the industry average for the current ratio. Let's look at the next one, the quick ratio. The quick ratio is the same thing as a current ratio, except we remove inventories. And the reason we remove inventories is because inventories are the least liquid of the current assets that we see. They are and we say least liquid, they are the ones that we can turn into cash the least easily, I guess would be a way to put that. So in order to do that, to calculate the quick ratio, we need to make sure that we subtract out inventories from our current assets. So we're going to start with the equals, type in equals, but now we're going to have to use parentheses because we want current assets minus our inventories, which we find both of those again on the balance sheet. Current assets, right here, 106,869 minus my inventories of 2132, close my parentheses, divided by my total current liabilities of 79,006. And we see that that gives a quick ratio of 1.33. Again, very strong compared to the industry average, that even without inventories, they can cover their short-term liabilities about 1.33 times. Let's move on to average collection period. Average collection period simply states or shows us how long does it take for the firm to get paid after they sell items. And typically we see in industry a net 30 terms or 30 days to pay off sales that we have on credit. So to calculate our average collection period, we need to find our accounts receivable, and we need to divide that by our sales or our revenues for the year on a daily basis. We're going to take our sales and divide it by 365 days. So to find this, we want our accounts receivable, which we know is found on our balance sheet. Accounts receivables we see here is listed as net receivables in C9 of 29,299. And we're going to divide that by our revenues divided by 360. So we're going to want our parentheses there. Go to income statement to find our revenue or our sales. We're going to divide that by 365 because we want it on a daily basis. We're looking for how many days does it take for us to get paid after we have our sales. So we have an average collection period of 49.59 days, which seems to take them a little bit longer to be paid than the industry average of 35.55 days. So it's taking them a little bit longer. Maybe they're on a net 60 term rather than a net 30. Not sure. You'd have to dig into that. The fourth ratio we're going to look at is accounts receivable turnover. And accounts receivable turnover tells us how many times is the accounts receivable bucket turned over or filled up and paid in a year that we see. And so in order to calculate this, we need to look at our sales or revenues, and we divide that by our accounts receivable number. So we find our sales. We're going to type in the equal sign to start our formula. We know our sales is found on our income statement. Revenue of $215,639 divided by my accounts receivable, which we see are divided here. We click on our balance sheet, and that would be under net receivables of $29,299. So that gives us an accounts receivable turnover of about 7.36, which again we want higher. For this one, higher is better. For average collection period, we actually want that lower. We want to have fewer days that it takes for us to get paid. But accounts receivable turnover means that we are collecting, and on average, about 7 times a year we're getting paid our accounts receivable, which is higher than our industry average of 6.45. So that is a good thing. Lastly, inventory turnover. How long does it take to turn the firm's inventory into cash? Or how many times is our inventory stocked and sold and restocked per year? And so to find this, we are looking for a cost of goods sold, our COGS, divided by our inventory. So for this one, we want to look at wholesale numbers. We don't necessarily want to look at revenues. We want to look at our cost of goods sold because that is a wholesale number divided by our inventory, which is also a wholesale. So we want to compare apples to apples. So to do that, we find our cost of goods sold is on our income statement. We see that is $131,376 there in cell C12. And we're going to divide that by our inventory, which we find on our balance sheet. Inventories here of $21,32. Once we have that, we have our formula up here, income statement C12 divided by our balance sheet C10. We can just hit the enter key, and that gives us an inventory turnover about 61.62 times, which is extremely high for the industry. Average for the industry is 17.45, and they're at 61.62. So they are turning over their inventory almost 3 to 4 times faster than the industry average we see.